Welcome back to another video. I'm Akhil, I'm a real estate agent, and this is documenting my journey towards my final objective. And my current mission is to accomplish your real estate goals in the most effective and efficient way possible. So let's get on to the video. All right, so in this video, some general topics I'm going to be going over is the cold calling I've been doing, some updates there, some Zillow metrics and things I want to talk about, just so that some tips that I learned, what I'm doing about tenant side leasing, the current leases that I currently have now, a current property that I'm working on, or not a property, but a current buyer that I'm working with that we made a couple offers for, or an offer with right now. Yeah, a couple other topics. So let's get into the video. So the first thing is going to be cold calling. So first of all, I just want to preface this with so far, right now, I've closed three leases from the cold calling. So I think last time I was talking about how I had, I think 3 or 4 lease listings. And currently, as it stands right now, I've closed 3 of them. I got another lease listing, so I currently have 2 active listings. One of them is taking like forever to get leased. I guess it's just really that it's in Woodland Hills. The bedrooms are really small, and I'll get into some of the other reasons on why it's taking so long to lease out, and some of the other things that I notice in properties that take forever to lease out. I'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, right now I have 2 active leases. I have 1 more coming up, and I have. Yeah, like I said, closed 3. So one thing I did notice about the cold calling is that, so if I do it consistently for about 2 to 3 weeks, like for 4 to 5 sessions in those, so let's just say like probably 8 total sessions, which will be like maybe each day at least calling like about maybe 20 to 30 people, maybe like 50 to 60 actual calls, probably about like close, like between 40 and 60, just depending on the day. So 40 to 60 calls for about 4 days, 2 weeks. So that's about 8 sessions. If I can do 8 sessions, I have like a pretty solid like base of people that I continue following up with, and I can probably get at least 1 to 2 leases from that. So when I had my 3 other the lease listings before that I was closing, I was like all over the place showing those, because my priority is always to service before getting new. Like my priority is to always give the highest customer service and to use customer service first, like as in like servicing the listings first. Right, so I make it a priority to do the showings over the cold calling, and I always make sure to do that more. It's like it's higher in the priority list than more leads. Right, lead servicing is more of a priority than lead acquisition, and the reason is because I want to have a good word of mouth and a good. I want to overpromise, not overpromise. I want to make a promise and then overdeliver. So yeah, that's basically that's the priority. I obviously. Even when I had those leases, I was still cold calling pretty consistently. It was just some days, it's just I had like, okay, I have to do this, where I have to deliver the keys to the tenant. I have to go to showings here. I have to do this. And it's just, I don't have time for cold calling, so it's just not the priority. I still consider those productive days, of course, because I'm still moving everything forward, but I'm just not cold calling because I have other priorities that are just simply more important in terms of lead servicing. So I guess the priority list would be like lead servicing first, right? Obviously helping the landlord, sellers, buyers, whatever it is. Then it would be lead acquisition, open houses, cold calling, whatever else, door knocking. That would be second. And then the third thing would be follow-ups. And follow-ups is just like the consistent people that aren't actively looking, or that are not actively like needing help, but people that potentially maybe down the line need help, or people that I just know that I'd like to just, hey, like, just thought about you, want to just, how is everything? How's your summer? How's your winter? Merry Christmas, whatever, happy Thanksgiving. Just, basically keeping in touch. That's the third priority. And then everything else is after that, right? Everything else like posting and all the other stuff is after that. So yeah, those are the 3 main priorities. And so that's all to say. When I do consistently cold call, I'd say it's about like 2 to 3 weeks where I'm like slow. And then I'll kind of like get a ton of leads, and then I'll be like basically fully booked because, I just have a ton of work to do in terms of getting photos for those properties, showings for those properties, right? Like meeting owners for other properties, just doing all kinds of stuff that takes up a lot of time. That is still a priority, but it's just, I'm just unable to do the cold calling and fit it in on those single days. But when I do that, like I said, I'll have like some leads, and then normally what'll happen, at least just what just recently happened, is I'll have that once it's finally leased out, then I get back to the cold calling, then I get back more business. I like to try to keep it more consistent, where I'm just like calling and then having leases at the same time, and it just makes it easy. But one thing I did notice is that this lead pool is getting shallower and shallower. So like over those, like I would say like 2 weeks where I was really consistently cold calling, I pretty much called all the leads that were leases in that area. So, and I did more. So what I mean by that is when I go into Zillow, right, and I see whatever leases there are, I sort it down from like $100,000 a month all the way to about like 4,000. I don't want to go under that because it's not really worth my time. So between that, there's a ton of leads that are for sale, for lease by owner or for lease by a property management company that could use an agent's help. So I call all those leads, and I only call the ones obviously that are on the market for about 20 to 25 days or more, because if they're under 20 to 25 days, they're just not really a good lead, and it doesn't make sense. Why would you pitch your services to somebody who doesn't really need your services? It doesn't make any sense. So, and there's a finite amount of leads, right, which is what I noticed. What I ended up doing was within like the first week and a half, I already pretty much blew through all of the leads. And again, this takes like hours to actually, get all these leads together. I'd say for each like cold calling session that I have of like 20 to 30 leads that I have, I'll say about like 20, it's somewhere between 20 and 25 leads that I always have to call for the next day. That takes about at least 2 hours to call, I'd say 1 hour and a half to 2 hours to call all those leads. Sometimes 2.5, depending on how long the conversations are. But yeah, like I said, it takes a couple hours for me to actually, it takes like an hour to hour and a half to scrub all of that information for the calling. And what I noticed is that as I start to call and get closer and closer and closer, I have to go back. So the way I do it is I do area by area. So I'll go on to Zillow and I'll sort it by the valley first, 100 to 4,000, and I'll do that area. Then I'll go to like Santa Monica, not like Santa Monica and the surrounding areas, 100 to 4,000, and I'll do like Beverly Hills and the surrounding areas. And I'll have like 3 major areas that'll pretty much cover all of LA and Malibu and just like the areas that I could reasonably get to. And I'll do this like section by section. And then once I get through all 3, then I start back at 1, 2, 3, and then I go back to 1. But if I go through, like what ended up happening is I went through 1, 2, and 3 all in the same, like I scrubbed all through all of it within like 4 days of calling. So then I have to go back to 1. But since I just scrubbed 1, like literally 2 days ago, so since I just got the data like 2 days ago, there's not really very many more. So it takes like double the time to find new ones that just made the 25-day mark where I can call them. So, and it takes even longer to scrub. And at a certain point, like I was just running, I ran through them like almost twice now, and it's like there's no leads to call basically. So, like as in there are people, but it just takes so long to scrub that it's just like my entire day it would take like 3 hours just for me to find all the leads, just because I've already called so many people. It's like finding a needle in a haystack, and since I've already called most of those people that are already there. And on top of that, when I go check it again, I get mixed up on some of the ones that I already potentially added on, or sometimes I find a lead but I couldn't find their contact information, so I never get added, so I end up having to do double work, and it just takes longer and longer if there are smaller and smaller leads. So what I tried was was to like once I noticed that it was getting shallower and shallower, I switched to like expired leases on the market, so ones that were listed by an agent, were expired, never got rented out by the agent. And unfortunately, these are just not as good quality leads. So I did this for like 2 or 3 days. I called a decent amount of those leads. I'd say at least, I called like the last month full of expired leases. And I basically got no results from it. And not even like really good leads. They were all kind of like shitty leads. Most of them were either rented, the owner just ended up moving back in, or whatever the situation is, they're just not looking to lease it again. And they were already on the market for like 60 plus days and they're just not interested anymore. So those aren't that great of leads, is what I noticed. So in terms of leases, the lead pool gets shallow after about 2 to 3 weeks of really consistent calling. But the good thing is about this is if you're a single person like I am, what happened before, which is why I never really noticed it until now, was that I would call, I'd get a ton of leads, so then I'd be busy for the next like week or so, and I'd only be able to call once or twice, and then I'd be busy servicing, and then I'd finally get back to calling, but it would be like more than a couple weeks later. So then I'd have a whole new set of leads to call, so I'd call those leads, and then I'd get busy again. So I'd, then I'd have to go all the way back and then service all those people, help all those people out, do showings, do all this, do photos, meet owners, hold open houses, do door knocking for other places. So then I'd kind of get filled up with other things, and then I'd have enough, and then by that time enough time would have passed so that I could just continue calling the leases. But what ended up happening for the last couple of weeks is I was just consistently like powering through calling. Even though I got a little bit busy, I still would just continue powering through. And then it ended up being like I basically had no leads and it was taking forever to scrub. So what is the solution to that? Well, for right now, like I said, for the last like 2 to 3 days, like yesterday, I was just like running around doing showings, meeting owners, taking photos, doing things, and I didn't have time for cold calling. The day before that, I was holding an open house during the day. A Wednesday open house does sound weird, but today's Friday. So a Wednesday open house may sound weird, but the property that I was holding it for, it's an interesting situation where, you know, it's so under market value that so many people were reaching out that they wanted to hold an open house on Wednesday. So that's, and I got like 11 people come through on a Wednesday. So that's like, you know, pretty good. Yeah, that was the reason for that. And then the day before that, I did do cold calling. And then, yeah, the day before that, I was just running around showings and meeting owners, stuff like that. So yeah, there's always like something going on. And if it's like more spaced out, like instead of if I'm cold calling like 2 times a week, it's really easy to get leads. If I'm calling 4 times a week consistently, like, you know, 25 leads each day, 100 leads total for all those 4 days, I basically run out of leads pretty fast. So yeah, I guess it's kind of like you know, it's like a kind of like a happy medium you have to reach when it comes to this. But if I do need to do more lead gen, I have tons of like, you know, cold calling like that's like expired listings that are for sale, which I could always call. I could always like do door knocking or something. There's always options if it gets really shallow. But yeah, that's just kind of what I noticed. So yeah, I think what I'll end up doing is just calling the expireds. If it gets super shallow, I'll just go through. I have like a ton of expired data, like ton of like scrubbed data from this one system that my team lead had. So I have like hundreds, thousands of expired contacts that are 6, 12 plus months. Expired a long time ago, was never relisted, that I could call up, see if they need any help, want to get it rented out, want to get it sold, whatever. I have tons of leads to call. So yeah, it's really just kind of just managing time, making sure I know who I'm calling. Another thing is certain times. So another thing I stopped doing is I stopped calling under like about $4,000 leases. The reason for me doing that is because I recently had an experience with a multifamily unit where it wasn't bad or anything. It was just like I was helping out renting it out, but I just noticed it was like around like 3,000. It was like 2,800, somewhere around 2,800. This place, I rented it out, but it just like considering all the time it took for me to go to and from, and then this landlord specifically wanted different requirements for the lease, so I ended up having to go back and forth on the lease like 100 times, like at least like 5-6 times. I had to redo the lease, which is fine. It's not an issue, but it's just like time-wise, I had to consider like, okay, is it worth my time to do $2,800 leases if I know what's going to happen, right? If I know like, okay, if I can foresee in the future, like obviously there's going to be like lease back and forth. That's part of every lease. Regardless of lease, there's always going to be like back and forth on how like certain terms on the lease or certain like documents on the lease or certain things that they want to blank out or they want to add or whatever. That's always going to be there. But do I want to do that extra work for something that's only $2,800 a month, or do I want to do that extra work for something that's like $5,000 a month? If I get paid double for the one that's $5,000 a month anyway, then why would I do the one that's cheaper? It's just like, where do I put my time? So my thought process was that I'm going to just focus to the ones that are higher priced, same amount of work. And I want to obviously ideally focus on the ones that are 10,000 plus. But the problem is that there's just so few of those rentals that are listed by a property manager or by owner that are on the market for longer than 25 days. It's like a handful. And obviously I call all of those people every time. But at the end of the day, if you have like 100 that are between the prices of like, you know, 5,000 and 8,000, there's like 100 of those. But when you get to 10,000 plus, there's like 10. So obviously, statistically, what are you more likely to get? Obviously, one of the 100. My first listing presentation was one that was above 10 grand, but I obviously didn't end up getting that one. And since then, I haven't really had any listing presentations that are above like 5-6 grand. So yeah, like 7 grand was the highest so far. So it's really just like, you know, just like obviously I'm gonna call every lead that I get, but there's obviously a drop off point to where there's certain leads that it's just not worth servicing because of time wise, and it's just not worth like the time and the effort and obviously gas just to go back and forth. It doesn't make sense. So yeah, keeping it to 4,000 plus. And then, yes, and what I noticed is like a lot of leads or landlords or like tenants, they always have like really specific requests on what they want to see in a contract, and they want to like black out a ton of stuff. So in terms of paperwork, I don't know why it is, but just like anything to do with like realtor forms, there's like 500 forms for no reason, like at least 60 pages, which is like, I mean, if you read through the actual lease, I feel like a lot of the information is actually redundant. You could probably delete half of it, make it super efficient, and save everybody like 100 years during the entire leasing process. But obviously, they're never going to do. The board of realtors is never going to do that. And a lot of them are like state-required disclosures and state-required documents. They don't really help anybody. Nobody even knows what they mean, and it's just like kind of like redundant junk. But you know, it is what it is. And then another thing is like circle backs, which is like following up. Following up is kind of big on landlords, like for leases. What I notice is like if you get like 10, 15 people in the pipeline, I'd say maybe like you get 10, 15 people in the pipeline, you continue following up with them. At least one or two will turn into like good leads that want to meet with you, or they want you to, you know, do specific things about the property. So yeah, it's all about just getting more people into the pipeline. If they say, oh, you know, I'm not really interested, you always say, hey, would you mind if I check back in a couple weeks if it's not rented? And a lot of people say yes to that. And a lot of people after a couple weeks, they're like kind of fed up with the property manager taking forever, and they're willing to consider other options. And then I also want to talk about like what I noticed after having a gap in consistency. So there was like a period of time where I had a gap. I wasn't able to consistently cold call. And I just had a gap this week for like at least 2 to 3 days I haven't cold called. And what I really noticed is that it's not gonna, the only real issue when having a gap is if it's too long, then you actually like kind of just mess up the flow of cold calling. Because it's like once you get in the habit of cold calling every single day or 4 days a week, it's like it kind of just becomes habit and you just kind of expect it. Once you stop doing it, you just have to like regain the momentum of cold calling. But it's not that big of a deal. And I think the most important thing is that you actually have consistent people in the pipeline. And if you're consistently doing the follow-ups, you'll still get appointments. If you have a big lead list of people that want to be followed up with, it's still good. So the next topic is going to be like Zillow contacts and the metrics of some things on Zillow and what I noticed. So to start off, what I want to talk about here is when you actually lease a lease listing, right? Whether you lease it on your own, whether you lease it with an agent, whether you lease it with a property manager, whatever. When you put it on Zillow for leases, this is not for sales, this is for leases. When you put it on Zillow, what you'll end up seeing on Zillow is you'll see there'll be like a little like almost like a counter, and it'll have a contacts. Right next to it'll be saves, but those are irrelevant. It'll be contacts, and the contacts tab, basically that number, tells you how many people clicked ask a question or schedule a tour. Right, that'll tell you how many people clicked that button and sent in like a request to see the property. And the reason that this is important information is because when I go to, like, let's just say I'm calling up leads, right? And a person tells me that they're interested in having me take a look at their place, maybe meeting them. If somebody tells me that they're interested and then I take a look and they have like 2 or 3 contacts and it's been on the market for like 20, 30 days, I can already tell that clearly an issue is either pricing or there's really terrible photos, right? And if it's not really terrible photos, it's pricing. And the reason I can tell that is because anything that's priced well will immediately within the first 10 days at least have 10 to 15 contacts. And it's the same thing. So if I see something that's been on the market for 30 days and it has 30 contacts, then that means there might be something wrong with the property itself. Like it may just have like really small bedrooms, or there might be like something else that is stopping people from renting it. But on the listing, you're getting a ton of people reaching out. So that means the current price is not, like people are still reaching out at the current price and it's not like terrible. And you have a decent chance of, you know, if you take it up at that current price, you have a decent chance of just getting more people in the door. Or even if it has a slight, you don't really need to have like a major price reduction. Basically, it tells you that the pricing isn't terrible. So the contacts thing is a really good gauge on how the market is in terms of pricing. And if the market is thinking that your place is fair. So it's really useful if you have a lease listing and it's been 5 days that you just leased it, like you just listed it and it's been 5 days and you only have 2 contacts, you already know that you're priced wrong. So you can just immediately drop the price and you know that that's going to be fine because like it's very clear on the contacts. Because on the first 3 days, if you're not having at least like 5, 6 contacts, you already know that something's up and most likely you need to reduce the price. And that's what I noticed with my first lease listing that I listed. It took like, within the first 5 days, we only had 1 contact. So I didn't obviously know the contacts thing, how it worked that well at that point. But yeah, it was a major red flag. We ended up getting it reduced, and then we ended up getting leased after that, after a couple price reductions. So that's all to say that if you pay attention to the contacts thing, the number of contacts really gives you a good idea of how many people are interested at this price point, how many people are actually looking at the property, and are willing to like see it in person. And it gives you a good idea on pricing, and just like if your place is like quite crazy overpriced, you're just not going to get anybody. If you're really well priced, you're going to get a ton of reach outs. So that's kind of just like a tip, I guess. Zillow contacts, contacts tab. So next topic is tenant side leasing. So obviously the original plan of like going after landlords was that if I call enough landlords, that eventually the landlord leads would eventually turn into sales, and the people that I meet through leasing may end up buying a place, right? And I could represent either way. So in terms of that, what I noticed is like, so the main thing is here is that in terms of landlords, a lot of landlords are good people, and yeah, potentially they may sell down the line. That could happen. In terms of tenant side, in terms of people that are coming through, the way I've been handling it is so what I used to do in Skylight, right, is that any lease lead I would get, I would basically start sending them properties and treat them as if I was going to represent them on the tenant side to lease a place. What I've been doing now is anybody that comes through, right, I'm just kind of like, friendly, meeting with them. And any lead that comes through that's unrepresented, I'm kind of just getting a gauge on what kind of person like they are, what kind of lead they are. They're going to like rent something. And I'm only helping out a select few people that I know I can actually really help with minimal effort. And what I mean by that is if somebody comes in and they're like, they have like, if they're looking for something like super duper like specific that I already know is probably not existent, and they're looking at a really like a price that's never going to happen, or they're like, they're really active on their own anyway, so they don't really need the help of an agent, or, just things that wouldn't be conducive to me really being able to provide very much value. Then I just, like, normally back in the day, I probably would have still tried to help them. Now I'm just like, okay, there's not even a point of me putting my time into this. But other people that I can clearly see, like, okay, I can really add value here. Like maybe there's something that they need, or they don't have time to actually like really look at the places on the market, find something. They're not able to see the ones that they want because those are ones that are only available to agents, whatever it may be. If I can really see that I can help the lead specifically, then I start helping out tenant side. But yeah, I'm pretty focused because I know that at the end of the day, I only have so much time. And if I want to continue cold calling, doing landlord stuff, I want to keep the people that I'm helping tenant side wise really, really small, and people that I can really help with minimal effort on my end, but it'll provide a lot of value to them. So that's kind of the thought process in terms of like tenant side. And another thing kind of loosely related is, so as you know, I charge 6% to lease a place. What does that mean? That means 6% of the first 12 months. So let's just say a place leases out for $10,000 a month, right? That'll be $120,000 of the total lease value of the 12 months. So I'll charge 6% of that, which is, I don't know, somewhere around like 8 grand, somewhere around there for that. And that'll be the total 6% of the commission, right? So when a tenant side agent, so let's just say the tenant who comes in and rents out the place is represented by an agent. So there's 2 agents involved in the transaction. Then of the 6%, what I used to do was 3% would go to them, right? So it'd be split evenly. But now I'm realizing like, okay, the standard commission rate for tenant side agents is 2.5%, right? And for me, it's like a lot of effort because I don't actually rent out $10,000 places. I rent out like right now $4,000 to $5,000 places. And in terms of effort and sacrifice, 3% is just not enough to really make anything worthwhile. So what I've been doing is now anything that comes in any moving forward leases that I do with the second agent, we're just going to give 2.5% to the tenant side, which is pretty standard, and I'll get 3.5%. So instead of splitting it evenly, 3-3, you get an extra 0.5%. And what benefit you may ask, like, oh, what benefit do you get of doing that? Well, the main benefit is that you get the extra 0.5% over an extended period of multiple leases. That does add up, and it's just worth it. And at the end of the day, like, it's not like out of stinginess. It's just out of like, okay, at the end of the day, the list side is just more effort overall compared to the tenant side. So it just makes more sense to just structure it that way. All right. So I want to talk about my current leases, right? I want to go a little bit more in detail. I know I talked about it a little bit before, but so I currently have 2 leases active. One of them is like probably going to get rented out within the next few days, probably, because I just got a pretty well qualified applicant. It'll probably be accepted, so that'll probably get rented. And then one of them is still sitting on the market for like, it's been like 100 years right now. I think it's close to like 45 days. And you may be wondering, what the hell? What are you doing? Well, I've shown this place I think 30 times at this point, or more. Probably like between 25 and 30 times, I think. It's somewhere around there. I don't know the exact number on me. I can get it, but it's, yeah, somewhere between 25 and 30. Anyway, from all the showings, I mean, okay, so I just want to go over like maybe 5 things that actually cause a place to sit forever. One of them is bedroom sizes. One of them is price. One of them is like, it's just like, is it even showable? Is like the tenant inside crazy and it's super dirty or something? That'll also stop a place from leasing. Yeah, those are like the 3 main things. Really comes down to bedroom sizes, price, and like the locality, and does it make sense? But really, fundamentally, it comes down to price, because everything can be made up for with the right price. Like even if the bedrooms are super small, if it's priced super cheap, it'll get rented. But for this specific property, all the comps point to like it's in Woodland Hills, so all the comps easily put it above 5,800. Places nearby that are really similar rented within like 5 seconds that were 5,800. We're currently priced at 5,500. This was with a property manager before at like 6,300. We went down to 5,600, 5,700, and then now we're back at like 5,500. So, and the problem I think with this property specifically is that the bedrooms are just, everything is perfect about the property. The yard is beautiful. What do you call it? The living area is huge. It's really expansive. Garage is nice. Kitchen's nice. Everything is great, except when you get to the bedrooms, they're super small. It's a 4-bedroom house, and all of the bedrooms are like just like crazy small, including the primary bedroom. And also, there's no like room, like there's no bathroom for guests. So like anybody who wants to use a bathroom has to go through a bedroom or use the master bathroom. So that's obviously going to be an issue for a lot of people. That was the main concern. And it's just like, even though we've shown it like 100 million times, it's just nobody has been like willing to really apply, or just like really like be serious about it yet. So I'm thinking, so right, like actually today I recommend we just lower the price to like 5,200 or something like that, just so we can just like, because otherwise we simply won't get it rented out. And we were already, he wanted me originally to do a 30-day listing, and I said, okay, sure. And then once we got close to 30 days, we extended it for another 2-3 weeks. So we only have like 2 weeks or like a week left of the contract. So obviously I'm more motivated to get it rented out. He's obviously wants to get it rented out because it's been like almost 3 months now, because including, so he had it with 2 months with the other property manager, and now almost a month right now with me, or a little bit more than a month and like 15 days with me. So over like what, almost like 3 months, 4 months now. So I'm sure he wants to get it rented, but yeah, it's really just pricing it right. And yeah, that's just overall there. And then I also want to tell a quick story about Section 8. So I was showing the same property, and there was a person who called me up, and they told me, hey, yeah, we'd like to see it. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll be there, blah, blah, XYZ time. And I was up, and then they came in. And then at the end of the phone call, after we had confirmed the time, they told me they were Section 8. And don't tell anybody, but normally when somebody says they're Section 8, because I just, from other agents and other people, I've just heard a bad rep from Section 8. So normally when somebody calls me and they says, hey, I'm Section 8, I normally just end up like saying, oh yeah, that's great. And then I don't get back to them, just because, again, you just don't want to deal with that just in a general way. I think I'll probably get like prosecuted by the Section 8 Housing Administration now for saying this. But if I do, I do. And this is just the truth of the matter. They have a bad rep for a reason. And this is exactly why I'm about to explain why. So they told me they were Section 8 after we confirmed the showing. So I was like, okay, whatever, just come by. Yeah, so when they came by, and again, what is Section 8? You may be wondering. You may be like Africa, so you have no idea what the Section 8 is. Section 8 is like, basically government provides assistance to low-income families so that they can rent a place. So it sounds great in theory, like, oh yeah, they're helping out people who are poor to get places that that they need for their family. In my opinion, I think it's totally stupid, and you're about to see why. So I was here about to show the place, and I was like, okay, yeah, they're coming in. So they're coming, okay, brand new Model X. Okay, if you don't know what a Model X is, Tesla Model X, it's like an $80,000 car. Okay, they show up in a brand new Model X. They come out, they got designer clothing, all designer clothing, Supreme, Gucci handbag or whatever, Louis Vuitton handbag, some shit. And their shoes are clearly their shoes are worth more than my entire wardrobe. Okay, and then like jewelry, and I was like, bro, what? Like this is Section 8 is going to these people? Like, come on. Like it's like, and then they come in, they look at the place. And at that moment, I was like, bro, Section 8, this doesn't make any sense at all. Like, come on, how can Section 8 be going to people that, like, this is like, I don't know, this is like a rift in reality right here. Like, we're talking about a person who's clearly overspending, right? And then because of that, they get government benefits. Like, that's just like, I don't know, it's a clear misuse of funds. Because, like, think about it. This is like taxpayer money. These are other people's taxpayer money going in to fund them, right? Like they're two people with a small kid, right? And it's going to fund them. They quote unquote don't have enough money for rent, and they're driving an $80,000 car with designer clothing. Okay, and this is a $5,000 place like per month, right? A house for like $5,500, right? And the government is supposed to be paying for these people when they could just afford it themselves if they just didn't live like if they didn't live above their means. I have nothing against people who buy nice stuff. I like nice stuff too, but you can't like be on government assistance and then also spend money. Like it's just, I don't know. To me, it's just like, come on, like what the heck? I mean, I don't know. I just don't like that. It's like, because like think about it. It's like it's taxpayer money. I pay taxes, obviously, and it's just like it's just annoying to see. Like, come on. So yeah, that's just like my experience with Section 8. I mean, if you ask me, my honest opinion is it sucks. It's lame. It's stupid, and Section 8 clearly doesn't make any sense. Some people may say, but this is only one example. You only see one person. Well, if this is the ability to what happens, and I've heard stories of other people. They told the Section 8 person like directly, oh yeah, we don't accept Section 8, and then they sued them. It's like what? Like you're not even allowed to say to a Section 8 person, we don't accept Section 8. Otherwise, the Section 8 people will, like the government housing administration will come after you. Like, you're discriminating. Like, bro, these are like, you're giving low income people free money to stay in places that they clearly can't afford. It's not helping anybody. And then they obviously trash the place because they're like people who like just don't respect it. Because you don't respect things you don't earn. So I don't know. It's just like, it's stupid. So the entire thing, in my opinion, is like, it's just like so lame. But yeah, that's my entire story about Section 8. Now you know my thoughts about it, and I'm sure the government administrations are going to come after me. Akhil, screw you! You are discriminating against poor Section 8 people! And that'll be great, so I hope that happens. All right, so let me go over now. I'm helping a buyer, right? And this buyer I met at an open house like I think 6 months ago, maybe, at this point. And I've been consistently following up, sending properties like every couple days, or whenever a property that they like may come up, I send it to them. And we currently made one offer to one place. And we're potentially going to make a couple more offers. They're seeing a couple places tomorrow. So maybe potentially more offers. But yeah, so the real thing I wanted to talk about here, the real reason I brought this up is because, as you know, I think I spoke about this before, but what am I going to do with the buyer when the new rules come in and now we have to talk about commission? So at this point, I mean, not really much has changed. There's just more documents to add to the offer, which, like I said before, whenever California or whatever the realtor, whenever anybody in the government decides to do something, they just start adding shit, right? So now if you start adding things without removing things, what you end up with is just a really long, arbitrarily stupid process that doesn't make any sense. And to be fair, the real estate industry is full of it. Like the entire documentation thing is just unbelievable, right? For one lease, you have a 60-page document. For one offer, you have a 30-page document. It's like 35 pages, including all the things. Just to make an offer on a house, I have to sit there line by line, spend 30 minutes just making sure everything looks right. And we're talking about with a template. I already have a pre-made template, and then I have to spend another 30 minutes just making sure everything is aligned to what they asked. It's just like, it doesn't make any sense at all. But and it's like, if you actually read through the entire offer, which I have multiple times, read through every single page by page, 95% of it is redundant information that doesn't even matter. It's just a bunch of state disclosures, bullshit this, bullshit that. And it's all a bunch of shit. So it doesn't even matter. It's like a bunch of junk. And then they just add it together. And then now when they have the new laws, you have to add another 5-page document. And then for any new buyer or any buyer, it's just like freaking jarring. Who's going to read through 40 pages there? It's just like insane. It doesn't even make any sense at all. And yeah, it's just like, and then there's like this line where it says one thing and it's just like another line that says it in a different way. And it seems like it's contradictory, but it's actually just ambiguous. And it's just, I don't know, it's so stupid. But anyway, enough about that. Enough about my complaining about that. What am I going to do about it, and what I already did. So with the new laws, there's just an extra 5 documents that are added to there, which is like the buyer-broker agreement. And basically in the buyer-broker agreement, all that's changed now is that I just tell the buyer, hey, normally the seller pays commission. In this case, the seller will also pay a commission. I'll request it from the seller. Nothing's going to be out of your pocket. I'll put that in the offer as well. And yeah, and for this specific thing, buyer broker agreement, it's specific to the property. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It was nothing really specific. So I get, if that makes sense. All I did different. Normally you would just put in an offer, but now you put in an offer with the buyer broker agreement and commission request from the seller. So you want the seller to pay the commission, not the buyer. If that kind of makes sense. And yeah, that's, like I said, the only thing it does is just make the entire process more laborious and confuses the buyer. That's literally all it does. All right, so I want to talk about total yearly closes. I know the year's not over, but I just want to talk about to date. It's currently, what, November 8th. Today is November 8th, 3 days after the election. So November 8th, and we're talking about total amount. So, okay, so total closes right now is 17, including the sale. So 16 leases, 1 sale. So total amount made this year, somewhere sitting around 19 grand. From last year, somewhere around like 6,600. So total of about 25 grand. All time. This is like, and I've been in business now. I started May of last year. Now it's November. So 1 year, 6 months basically. Yeah, 1 year, 6 months. So I started in May of last year. I mean, I officially joined the team. I got my license in January of last year. So I guess if you include that, it's like almost 2 years now, in 2 months. But yeah, I really consider when I started the team, first 2 months, I really didn't make anything, obviously, because, you know, I had no idea what that guy was doing for those 2 months. And then I figured stuff out. But I'd say almost a year and a half, I made like 25 grand. So from an ROI perspective, that's pretty much worse than minimum wage. So doing good. You know, I've learned a ton. And I can't really look at it just like monetarily, because I think over time monetary will grow. And currently now, obviously, if I'm consistently closing leases, that's propelling me forward. The leases give me a good idea. Like, I mean, I've got on a listing presentation from a lease. I also got another listing presentation-ish from a lease like a couple weeks ago, or like literally a week ago. That one didn't, I mean, that lead, so just a side note for this quick tangent. I'm really particular about the leads that I'll actually take. I'm not like particular, but I just don't want the leads to be like crazy. And this particular lead was like a little off the rocker, if you want. I mean, it was just like somebody who was like it was like somebody who was really older, and they told me that they were a broker, and they like I don't know, they just kind of kept going on and on and on. I was at the property for almost like 2 hours basically. And that's not an issue. I'm completely fine with that. But then when I sent him like the lease listing contract, he started going through it line by line. And then he was like, okay, I want this line to be striked out. This line, I want it to be an open listing, not an exclusive listing. And I wanted to do this, and I don't want to do this. And I was like, okay, that's great. How about you just put that all in the notes and send it to me? And he's yet to send it to me. I don't know. I'll follow up in a couple of days, but I just don't think that's going to be like a long-term type of person I'm going to be really working with. Generally, when it's like, I don't like it has to like justify the effort. If it's like a $5 million listing, it's different than if it's like a $5,000 rental. And maybe like obviously if it turns into a sale, it's great, but I don't think it will. He just kind of wants to really rent it. And for like a $6,000 rental, am I really going to spend, because I can already tell the amount of time I'm going to have to spend just explaining to the owner what each line is, and then how it's going to work. Once we get an application, who the person is, then like we're going to have to meet that person, then we're going to have to do like, there's going to be a lot of back and forth, and I just feel like the process will basically never end. There's just more time, like net time-wise, I can spend it on way better things. So, but yeah, what I'm saying is like over a long period of time, I'm meeting more people like this, doing consistent open houses. So in a general sense, I think we're good in terms of like trajectory-wise. I think next 5 years, obviously, consistently making more every year, and that's the goal. And I think definitely next year, hopefully I can close like, at least, my goal is to close a deal a month. Obviously, I'm going to do as much as I can to do that, and we'll see where we get. Yeah, I think at least a deal a month, hopefully multiple. And by deal, I mean a sale, and multiple leases per month, ideally. And obviously, I'll consistently continue cold calling, and I'll consistently continue holding open houses to do everything I possibly can to get that. And yeah, that's pretty much what I'm thinking in terms of like total yearly closes. This year I've closed what? This year I've closed 6 transactions, 5 rentals, 1 sale. Last year I closed 10. 11. 10 or 11 last year. 5 or 6 this year. Maybe 7 this year. I don't know, something along those lines, right? Including the leases. 2, 5, Six this year, 11 last year. Yes, 6 this year, 11 last year. That's what it was. So, yeah, that's that. And then I haven't been holding a lot of open houses the past few weeks, but I've got a really good one this week, so I'm holding it. I held up the same one on Wednesday, so that's going to be all good. And yeah, I'm just kind of putting more effort towards it, holding good open houses. Hopefully I can continue getting good ones. Another thing I noticed is like on the phones, speaking up is really helpful, and then just being more confident about the answers that I give instead of saying a lot of ums or maybe or could be. I'm just more confident, and that just comes from me knowing more of the answers because I've done it more times. And yeah, it's giving me better results, especially on the phone during listing presentations. Most of the mistakes I make during listing presentations and on the phone comes down to me just not being confident about what I'm saying, or me just like saying stupid shit. I've done a lot of times. So just me just saying something totally irrelevant, or me just saying something that is like hurting me. Like, oh yeah, I also have a listing that's taking forever. Wait a minute, that doesn't help me. Like, as in like, you know, there's a specific reason for that. That's totally irrelevant to this. So, you know, it just like, that doesn't help, you know, sell myself in terms of how I can provide value to them. It just says that, you know, it just like devalues my service. So speaking up basically helps in all regards. Being confident about the answers helps in all regards. And being truthful too. Like, I mean, for a couple of the past leases, I realized like, you know, I just need to be truthful. If it really does need a price reduction, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Just tell the owner, hey, I've shown it XYZ amount of times. This is the feedback that I've received. Based on this, I would recommend we do a price reduction of XYZ amount. I think that'll help us get it rented. I'll let you know in the feedback that we get. And that's just the best way to do it, rather than trying to sugarcoat it, you know, circling around. You know, I think blah, 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 blah. No. Just tell the truth straight up. No sugarcoating, no BS, no beating around the bush. Just say it how it is. And, you know, even if you lose the lead, it's better just to be truthful and just be honest than to try to sugarcoat and just like do a bunch of bullshit. So, here are the current areas that I need to improve. Okay, yeah, this is just like some random areas, not random, but some very specific things I need to do. I need to be more efficient during the cold calling. I find myself getting really distracted sometimes during the cold calling. Like I'll be calling, I'll be like staring out the window, and then like I'll be like doing something else, and I'll be like, oh shit, wait, what am I doing? And I have to get back to cold calling, or I get distracted with a follow-up, or somebody texts me or something. So I need to get more efficient and focused in the cold calling. I need to get better with speaking to people. Yeah, I just need to have better conversations with people. Just get more in the habit of just conversating with people, and you know, just get more in the habit of sales encounters. I think if I just do it more, I'll just get better at it. I'm getting better every time. It's just it's kind of just figuring out the person, making sure I'm as effective as possible with that specific person. Sometimes some people are different. You know, they like to talk a lot. Some people like to have you talk a lot or whatever. So it's just like really kind of figuring out the specific person, asking the right questions, and yeah, I just need to do that better. More creative posts. So the last few posts I've been making, or I've been trying to incorporate in the shorts, the talking head type posts. I've been trying to incorporate more hand gestures, trying to incorporate more like emotion, trying to incorporate more storytelling. That Section 8 story, it's a short as well. So yeah, I'm just trying to incorporate different things to try to make it more engaging, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm also trying to change up the posts too. Been doing more video tours, been doing more property type stuff, and that's obviously, you know, something that's, I want to obviously be like really real estate focused on my posts, not just a talking head. So yeah. And then also real quick, I want to shout out Andy Frisella. I guess I'm not really shouting about it since he's like huge, but I just want to say, like, he always asks, so I listen to MFCEO, right? MFCEO is like his podcast, MFCEO Project. And he always says, share the show. And I've already shared the show to everybody I know, right? I only have like 2 friends, right? I have like my one coworker who's a friend, and then I have my parents and my sister. So there's nobody else to share the show with. So I'm going to do it right here, okay? And I hope at one day, once I'm top G, you know, finding the meaning, okay? Once I'm amazing, okay? And this gets 1 million views, I hope that you go back and watch MFCEO. Just type it in, MFCEO, motherfucking CEO. Okay, type it in the internet, okay, and watch the podcast. This shit's the best, okay? And yeah, there's like a few hundred episodes, and it's amazing. Best podcast, top, like #1 podcast, great. Obviously, Alex Ramosi is amazing too. I'm just saying, Andy Frisella, like amazing business podcast. It's like personal development. It's not just for entrepreneurship, right? It's for personal development. And being the best version of you, right? That's what he always says. It doesn't matter if you own a business, Doesn't matter what you do. It's about being the best version of yourself and to live life with a little bit of swagger and confidence. That's what he always says. So yeah, since I can't share the show with anybody because I don't know anyone, obviously other than clients, but it'll be awkward for me to send a podcast to clients. So I'm just gonna say here, anybody who's watching this video, I want you to stop watching this video. Go check out MF CEO by Andy Frisella. And his new stuff too, Real IF. He does cool, funny CTIs and Q&AFs that are great, super helpful too. But yeah, I hope this makes up for all those episodes that I watched and didn't share. So I want you guys to all go watch Andy Frisella. Andy, ANDYFRISELLA. Andy Frisella, look it up. Right, MFCEO project. So I hope that makes up for all the times I didn't share it. And if it doesn't, well, there's not much I can do more. I mean, I'll try to reference it as much as possible. But anyway, yeah, go check that out. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for this video. We kind of went over how Section 8 sucks, how there's too much litigation in real estate. I'm just kidding. We went over like my cold calling, my leases, obviously why things are sitting for a little while. My one listing is sitting for a while, what I need to do, how I'm working with the buyer, some other things. My yearly closes we went over, current areas that I need to improve, how speaking up is really important. And yeah, we went over quite a few different topics. So I think, yeah, on to the next few weeks. I think I'm going to continue cold calling, hopefully get more leases. Want to keep grinding out. Ideally, we can get this guy. Ideally, we can get a really nice place for this guy, the buyer I'm working with, because his lease is kind of coming up to a close, and he kind of really wants to find a place. So hopefully, we can get him a place by the end of the year. If not, obviously, whatever we can get him the best place possible, that's ideal. And hopefully I can close another like 2 or 3 leases by the end of the year. Yeah. Oh yeah, also, I want to say, so what I've been doing, which is cool, is every time, right, I close a lease, okay, this is about to turn into, just a preface, so every time I'm closing a lease, not every time I'm closing a single lease, but so whenever I close, so for my first lease, I wanted to have like a thing, just kind of like, not to celebrate maybe, but to mark that I closed my first lease from cold calling, because that was like, I don't know, kind of cool. And then now every time I close 5, moving forward, I'm gonna get a new knife. So this is and you might be like, what the heck, why knives? What are you, some type of weaponry person? Crazy? Well, I kind of like knives. Ever since like I started doing curbside, my friend, he was like into knives, and then just kind of like rubbed off on me. So I had another knife. It's a really old one, and that's what I used all throughout curbside. So it kind of has like significance to me. When I came out to LA, I got this one. When I closed my first lease from cold calling, I got this one. And now when I close 5, so my 6th lease from cold calling, I'll get another one that I'll show on camera. And these are obviously pretty cool. This is a CRKT fossil. I can't tell you how many times I saw this in Walmart and I wanted to get it. And it was funny because when I closed the first lease, I went to Walmart. That was the first thing I did. I was like, awesome, the lease is signed. It's amazing. I can finally go get this knife. Because I was thinking about it. I was like, okay, I have to achieve something for me to actually buy a knife, right? Because I really wanted the knife, but I was like, okay, I have to achieve something in order to get it. So I was like, okay, well, I've been cold calling a bunch, and I finally am about to close my first lease from it. So every time so for the first one, the first time I close a lease, I'm gonna buy a knife, and then five more after that, I'll buy another one. And then I remember I was looking at this knife for like almost like a month or multiple months before I actually got it. And then the day I closed the lease, I went to Walmart. They actually discontinued that knife, so I wasn't able to get it in the shop. It was hilarious, and I was like, "What the hell?" This is the exact one I wanted, the CRKT fossil, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" It was hilarious, but I ended up buying it online. Anyway, that's just like a funny side note, and yeah, that's kind of what I'm gonna do. So I guess every time I close 5 or a sale. So the thing is, if I close a sale, then that skips the 5, but it's an ulterior to the 5. So if I close a sale, then I'll get a new knife. Or if I close 5 leases from cold calling, I'll get a knife. Or whatever means I get the lease from, obviously. So 5 leases or 1 sale, I'll get a new knife. And I like knives, so I already have the next one planned out. It's going to be amazing, number 1. It's going to be super cool. It's going to be amazing. You're going to see it. It's going to be awesome. So I'm not too far, too. So I closed that one, right? And then now I closed 2 more. And now I just need 3 more that I need to close in order to get the next one, right? So I have one that's going to close, so it'll be 3. Then I have 2 left. Hopefully I can get this one that's been on the market forever to close, and then I have another one coming up that I can hopefully close. So hopefully by the end of the year I can get another knife, and that'll be cool. Anyway, I mean, I think by the end of the year I'll be able to get another knife, and hopefully I can get even more leases. I have another couple in the pipeline, so hopefully I can like start my way or even close 5 more before the end of the year to get another one. So yeah, we'll see. Anyway, total side note, just wanted to say that. So see you guys next time. And yeah, I know this video has been a little long, so bye-bye. Keep on doing your shit.